This is Empty the Bench with Tom Albano.
If foul play was involved, then Qatar might be in for a little bit of a rude awakening when it comes, because I could obviously see this going out of sports, this going into politics.
Nick Morgasen.
The White House was even saying like it was a trade. They weren't even calling it like a swap. All right, we'll trade the Merchant of Death, who was selling arms to Colombia and all these countries to kill people in the U.S. for Brittany Griner.
A new season of Empty the Bench starts now.
Yes, we are back. Empty the Bench after a 2-week hiatus has made its return. That is Nick Morgasen. I am Tom Albano. The 2023 season for Empty the Bench is now officially underway. So,
Yeah, it's been quite a treacherous December now into January. A lot going on behind the scenes, not really to get into. That's more behind the curtain stuff. But
just a lot going on. It's been a hellish December, but new year, new attitude. Same Fruity Cereal had their little 2023 premiere. They didn't really have much of a break. Game On just premiered yesterday, and now our season premiere. Obviously, the other shows are going to start to have their little 2023 premieres as the weeks go on. Yeah, there were changes that are going around the Empty the Bench network.
not today.
I was going to say, we're not going to really touch on it today, but obviously, can't fool anybody. But Nick Federa, and I mentioned the intro, Nick Federa will be stepping away for a little bit. We will get more into that at another point. We had a whole lineup of stuff that we were going to do, but if you have been paying attention to the sports world, obviously everything has kind of changed. But yeah, a whole new season, new microphone setup for me.
No, it sounds good. And before we get into everything, we'll get this out of the way because it's going to be a long show.
Yeah.
Follow the show on social media at ETB Sports, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. Follow the network, the Empty the Bench Network, on social media at ETB Network, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok. I'm only going to say that now because we are going to be into the thick of things once this show starts.
Yeah, so to give a little explanation on everything. So obviously when we had our little pre-show meeting at the start of the week, around New Year's time, when we were preparing for this episode, we were going in ready to talk about, and we will still touch upon things like the whole situation with the Las Vegas Raiders and Derek Carr, the little mention of the national championship game that's going to be coming up, my Giants making the playoffs, Nick, your Jets not making the playoffs, having this whole little more controversy with Zach Wilson, your Nets, however, on a very big winning streak. However, there are some things that have changed. Getting it out of the way right now, due to the situation involving the Bills-Bengals game, Damar Hamlin, and the NFL's decision. Behind the curtain thing, we are recording this on Tuesday night. As of Tuesday night, the NFL has said the Bills-Bengals game will not resume. However, there is no official word on if the game will be resumed at all. Like if they're just going to outright cancel it, pretend it never happened, and proceed with Week 18 as is, or if they will resume it next week. Week 18 will be pushed back. As a result of that, the plan was to do our final rapid rundown for the season. We are not going to do that. The rapid rundown will basically be declared over as of this point. If we get to Week 18 predictions, it will be another crossover with Johnny and Hank of Game On.
There's no way we could do the picks right now. First, one, we don't know when the games are. One, we don't know when this game is either going to resume. Is it going to start over? Now, I guess we'll just get right into it since we're talking about it now.
Yeah, so there's no point in talking about it. It's going to be most of this episode.
Right.
I don't even know how long we're going to spend on the other stories.
Right. But I was just going to say, Damar Hamlin is in critical condition after collapsing on the field during Monday Night Football. As it says in the banner, Bills Bengals suspended from Monday night. Now, you were watching it live. I was watching it live. Now, you know this because when I'm working on stuff for the network, I usually don't sit and watch the full game. Now, for some reason, because I knew it was such a big game, I actually went and was going to watch the whole game. I sat and watched the whole game. That's why I saw this live.
So I was watching a feed, but I was not actually watching the game. So for full context, I was up by a wide amount in one of my fantasy matchups, but my opponent had Josh Allen of the Bills, Stephon Diggs of the Bills, and Joe Burrow of the Bengals to play because it was a super flex.
Talk about a offensive juggernaut right there.
Right. So I'm a little superstitious. I chose not to watch Monday Night Football out of fear. If I watched, I could watch, what would look like an assured fantasy title being slipping away. So I said, I'll just keep, refreshing the feed, keeping it on to the YouTube. The NFL had the little game tracker on the YouTube. But I noticed, when it was like, what was it, 5 minutes and 50 something seconds left?
5:58.
Yeah, 5:50. It just stayed there. I'm like, what's going on? And then searching on Google with Bills Bengals and starting to see the tweets coming in about Damar Hamlin, seeing the video of the hit, it's like, okay, there's obviously a serious situation that's going on.
What's weird about this whole thing is it wasn't a aggressive hit. It wasn't a dirty hit. It was a normal football play. So then Damar Hamlin gets up, and then all of a sudden, 5 seconds after, goes down on his back, hits his head. Now, they're saying that there possibly might have been a concussion involved also on top of this. No, I can't confirm that. I don't know. But he goes down. He's out like a light. He's out.
Well, that would be the initial thought. The initial thought would be, okay, maybe he has to enter concussion protocol. But the thing is, he just was not
moving.
Now, obviously the ambulance, you had the paramedics go onto the field. Unfortunately, there are some times where we do see that with injuries and then play kind of resumes. But the thing is, he was not moving. They had to administer CPR.
And the other thing, I can't remember what the other thing is called.
They had to use the defibrillator.
But I thought it was like APAD or APR. Oh, yeah.
Clear.
Okay. Yeah. So basically, they had to do that. He was down for like 16 minutes straight, from what I understand. Now, obviously, he couldn't be out for 16 minutes straight, or else he wouldn't be alive anymore. So he was out for 9 minutes. They apparently got his heart back up from the reports. Then, what was interesting, and Buck and Aikman, who I give a ton of credit for, because this was probably the toughest thing they've ever had to deal with in the many years they've done broadcasts.
I think for Buck, this might have been. This definitely, I think, in my opinion, had to be the toughest broadcast for Buck since he was supposed to call the Cubs-Cardinals game in 2002 that got postponed because Darryl Kyle had died before that. And that was days after Joe Buck's own father, Jack Buck, the legendary voice of the Cardinals, had died. I think this had to be the toughest broadcast since that for Buck.
But the weird thing that happened, all of a sudden the Bills, the players, built a white wall around the ambulance and around him for medical privacy. I've never seen that before. That was like a first. And the cameras couldn't see. They're trying to get as close as they can, obviously, without it being a privacy issue. And then finally, the ambulance goes off the field.
Yeah.
The game gets postponed, and now it's a wait and see. Now, automatically, I'm sure for you and for me, we said there's no way this game can be continued.
Yeah, so trying to find the official timeline. I think it was around 8:50 something when the hit
8:55.
8:55. Damar Hamlin was injured. The game got temporarily suspended around 9:18. That was.
By the way, that took a long time. By the way,
it did. 9:25. A few minutes later, the ambulance left the stadium to transport Hamlin to University of Cincinnati Medical Center. 10:01 was when officially. This is all Eastern time, by the way. The game was officially postponed. University of Cincinnati Medical Center, the whole thing about that was I think they called it a stage 1 facility where basically they have a team on standby for accidents and such for trauma purposes.
Well, the one thing we're leaving out is, and they've been talking about this on Sports Center, and they've been talking this about everywhere. They have the staff in the stadium, everything, the administrator staff, the hospital. Apparently, they practice this every preseason, and they practice this with the people who are at each stadium during the game. So that's why it was quick. The response was quick when he went down. Now, you could say that's all well and fine that they did their job, but everything that happened after was a problem. From the point of
That,
from the
that
point
it
of
took 20 minutes for the game to be suspended, you mean?
yeah, and you could see in the back of the stadium, that's where the referees go, the teams go. They went back to the locker rooms, and then you see Zach Taylor and McDermott, both coaches, on a cell phone. I can't remember the woman's name, but she goes to the Monday Night Football games to represent the league. And
It was one of the PR people, right? Or
yeah, I think it's one of the representatives from the commissioner's office that goes to all the Monday night games. And we don't know who they were talking to. We think it's Roger Goodell. We don't know.
on the cell phone.
It could have been Troy Vincent, who's the VP of the NFL. We don't know who it was. But what transpired, which was not good, is that, all right, 5-minute warm up. Let's go back on the field and play football.
Now, the NFL in later conference call with media members, Troy Vincent, I think, was heading that basically they said, no, we never said that. We have no idea where it came from. Now, obviously, some of this was going to be taken from Twitter, and Twitter, obviously, their hearsay. We don't truly know who was in the stadium as a fan and whatnot. There were I remember coming across a tweet where a fan was basically saying, oh, it was said over the PA system that it was only going to be a few minutes.
Now, I believe that because they're trying to keep the fans from being all crazed around the stadium. So I could believe that could have happened because they probably said to them, all right, we'll be 5 minutes, when we all knew.
I mean, the thing, if you remember, since you were watching the feed after the injury, the game was officially suspended at 10:01, but the announcement never came for a few minutes. But you saw people already leaving the stadium, and I think it was Buck and Aikman talking about, well, in this day and age of social media where everyone has their cell phones, obviously news is going to spread a lot quicker than it will over.
Oh, yeah. I mean, social media made this drive crazy. And we'll get to a certain somebody in a few minutes that should be fired from their job for few people, actually, but one that really exploded Twitter for the wrong reasons. But so they're trying to get the news about Buck and Aikman, who are now people originally were saying, well, why do they keep throwing a commercial so much? I'll tell you why they were throwing a commercial so much, because this is unprecedented. They didn't know what to do.
Yeah, and they didn't have any updates. How many times can you honestly say on the air, oh, we have no updates, repeat the same information, and it's like, okay, you do 2 to 3 minutes of that. It's like, okay, back to break.
Well, that's when they eventually went back to the New York studios. We have Susie Kolber and Adam Schefter and Booger McFarland. By the way, Booger McFarland probably did one of his best analysis I've seen in a long time.
I give him a lot of crap, but like you mentioned, Buck, Aikman, Booger, Salters, all of them, they really showcased a hell of an ability. I think to take something that I said, something that I read off of Twitter, what was practiced in that studio, in that booth on Monday night, will probably be taught in college journalism classes for years to come.
It should, because the way they handled that, and I have to give credit to Ryan Clark also, who really was on top of his game after the game with SVP, really trying to break this all down without breaking a professionalism.
Mm-hmm.
And they were basically saying, follow the news that's being reported and don't assume things that we don't know.
Right. Although you did also see the concern on their faces, but they had to push through. There were a couple of times where I saw Lisa Salters basically looked like she was going to be on the verge. She was on the verge of tears.
They all were. I mean, Ryan Clark was, Schafter was, Booger was.
Okay, let me say this. Ryan Clark has always been used by ESPN as a way to kind of, get the player's side of things
And
and
he's
get
good at
players'
it.
perspective, and he's great at it. Great at it. But what he did on Monday night, those conversations with Scott Van Pelt, and it's Scott Van Pelt himself, but I've always praised Scott Van Pelt. I remember sending him a message of praise about 10, it'd be a decade ago when Sandy Hook was happening as his show was breaking. I said, and he basically started his show by saying, I don't care, about my show. I don't care about sports right now, and ended up talking about that for a little while. Uh, but my point being, SCP and Clark, what they did on the Sports Center segment following the official postponement of the game. If you did not watch it live, go find any clips that you can of that conversation because they really put things in perspective. And as I was saying about Ryan Clark, really hitting home, about the risk that some of these players will take as they go onto the field. That now, granted, there has only been one official death on the field of play in the NFL, 1970s with Chuck. What was his name? Chuck.
I can look it up.
It was Chuck Hughes.
Oh, Chuck Hughes. Yeah. I mean, what's so unique about that situation, by the way, people don't realize that this wasn't just on ESPN. This was on ABC as well. So this was going on around the country trying to
Yep.
cover this whole thing.
Well, think about
And
it. This was supposed to be a really big matchup. You had the Bills who were fighting for the 1 seed. You had the Bengals who, because of the Ravens losing to the Steelers on Sunday night in upset fashion, if the Bengals had won, they would have won the AFC North, and they could have also been in contention with the Bills and the Chiefs for the number 1 seed in the AFC as well. And like everyone has been saying on Monday night and since then, when that hit happened, all of a sudden everything about playoffs, everything about seeds in week 18, and this big, Josh Allen versus Joe Burrow matchup, split second, nothing mattered at that point.
I mean, here's the deal. Football is irrelevant at this point. Like the game is irrelevant. No one cares about Monday Night Football. Damar Hamlin is the one that's important right now. He was on a ventilator. He was basically couldn't breathe on his own. That's the most important part of this situation. Fuck your football. Sorry. But I don't care about the football game right now. No one should care about the damn football game right now.
I mean, when you were saying we were just talking about how it was only a game, all of a sudden came to my head. December 8th, 1980, where Howard Cosell on Monday Night Football saying this is just a football game no matter who wins or loses before breaking into the news story about John Lennon being dead.
By the way, probably one of the more historic play-by-play calls of all time, done on ESPN airwaves, ironically.
He's on Monday Night Football.
On Monday Night Football, right. Yeah, but people need to realize that even though it's just a game, these men put their bodies on the line. It's probably the most dangerous sport of all of the 4 major sports. You have more to lose sometimes than you do to gain in the NFL. Some of these guys do not. Yeah.
I was going to say NFL also, compared to the MLB, the NBA, and NHL, the least amount of guaranteed contract money. So
Which is insane.
At any point, these people's lives could be over in an instant. What we've talked about, the average career for a running back in this league, it's what, 2-3 years?
2 to 3 years, yeah. And then I've said this to you many times that I think the running back is probably the most, I wouldn't say dangerous position, but the most physical position you can play on the field, besides a defenseman, because you're taking the most, I don't know, what's the word you want to use, aggression from an offensive player. But I don't know. There was a lot of weird opinions going around on social media, and I don't know. I guess we can go to that at this point because you have guys like Skip Bayless. Now, again, you and I are not surprised by this. Most of the media is not surprised by this, but if you live under a rock and you don't know who Skip Bayless is, you got to know who Skip Bayless was on Monday night, because he puts out a tweet and I'm trying to see if I can. I had it up here before. Here it is, which broke a record, by the way, on Twitter. No doubt the NFL is considering postponing the rest of this game, but how? This late in the season, a game of magnitude is crucial to the regular season outcome, which suddenly seems so irrelevant.
Hold on a second. Hold on. Let me see if I can share my screen, my Chrome tab, because I just got the tweet up on here. So let's see if I can
I see it.
for
All
everybody.
right, I got it.
Okay. Here you go.
That's the tweet I just read. Now, I want to point out a number to you. Okay? Tom, what does that say next to views?
153.9.
Exactly. 100, just for rounding terms, 154 million views on this tweet. And he hasn't deleted it. He hasn't taken it down. And he gives his bullshit apology on Undisputed on Tuesday morning, which, by the way, Shannon Sharp did not show up because I'll tell you why he didn't show up. He didn't want to be around Skip at that point.
And I mean, why would you want to be when you consider, let's see if I scroll down, if everybody will start to pop up. Jordan Schultz.
It's bad. I scrolled through this.
Because there were multiple Brady Crawford. Oh, here, Kendrick Perkins, Darrell Revis, Isaiah Thomas.
It's bad. It gets worse.
After him.
It's bad. It's gotten.
I just saw right before I started scrolling up our old friend urinating tree, Schlosser.
I saw Dame Lillard had a tweet against that. I mean, any athlete or celebrity has either trashed this, quote tweeted this. This man needs to be fired. He has to be fired. There's no way. And I said to Tom before we came on here, there's two reasonings, one on each side for this tweet. One, Fox is saying, cha-ching, 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 154 million views. We're major. Or two, Fox has no idea what the fuck to do because 154 million views, this is unprecedented.
And I told you before we went on the air in response to that, Nick, that I think it's the former. Now you can say this is typical, liberal media crapping on, the right-wing side on Fox. But this is also, think about it, taking that part of it aside, kind of what Skip Bayless's job seems to be. If you've looked at his tweeting and his takes over the last few years.
Wait, you mean a shit poster?
Right. Well, I don't even know if I want to call it shit posting. Because think about it, Nick, and we've talked about it, that it was just a year or two ago where he had that god-awful take on Dak Prescott after his interview about
depression.
About depression after his brother losing his brother. And that was Skip Bayless's. Remember how big of a Cowboys fan is. That's his quarterback that he was trashing about.
But here's the thing, though. I'm going to keep going back to this number because it's insane. 154 million views. I don't think I've ever seen I've never seen a tweet get that many views.
But that's why I think nothing is going to happen to him because he is a views getter.
Okay. But this is a serious situation. Now, let me say one thing.
I'm not disagreeing with you. I think he should be fired. He should be reprimanded.
No, let me say one thing. The Dak Prescott thing was serious because it brought up all mental health and depression. This is worse because if Damar Hamlin dies, he should definitely be fired if that happens.
Yeah.
There's no repercussions for this whatsoever. I know what Skip was doing because Skip was trying to say that, oh, well, we're coming down to the end of the season. How do you make this game up? I know what he was trying to do, but if you look at the time on the tweet, 9:30 p.m. Eastern time.
The ambulance had just left the field.
It was 5 minutes after the ambulance left the field. Skip, I might not have the best timing, but that's bad timing.
And if you're going to bring this up on Monday night, you gotta word it a lot better. Because think about it. If you look at this tweet, if he's saying, because the people who are sticking up for this tweet somehow are saying, he's making a point. And yes, he is making a point. But when you consider the grand scope of things, like as you mentioned, Nick, about Damar Hamlin's health, about the fact that, as of Tuesday night, he has gotten some of his breathing back, but it's still 50-50. He's only gotten, he's not completely depending on the two, but it's still 50% of his breathing is
He's
dependent.
not breathing on his own still. Let's just say
Right.
that. So
So the fact that the only part of it where you're showing any care about Hamlin is that last line, of which suddenly seems all irrelevant. Yeah, you're right. The grand scope of the game, as we just mentioned, all of a sudden became so irrelevant. But most of that tweet is more about what happens with the NFL. Now, granted, as this show is obvious, this episode is premiering on Wednesday. Yeah, as of right now, we are looking for that kind of answer. But as of right now, we also aren't sure about what's going on with Damar Hamlin. There are signs that slowly recovering, but I mean, not out of the woods yet. There's still a lot of major concern that has to be made about this.
now I have over here, I just dropped in. So I have the apology that the fake ass apology that he gave on uh Undisputed.
Mhm.
And I watched this before. Now he's sitting there alone because, like I said, Shannon Sharp didn't show up. Now, the reason Shannon Sharp didn't show up was because Shannon Sharp doesn't want to be seen with this man right now, and I don't blame him.
But
So,
like I just said, when your fellow NFL brothers are all coming after this man, I don't think I would want to be associated with him right now either.
but I'll show you this because this is insane. Listen to this.
I don't think I can hear it.
All right, you get the point. My point is that this whole thing is insane, and he tried to apologize in a backhanded type of way, and essentially, I don't know. It's just one of those things where I was just like, I don't know. What do you want me to do? You're muted, Tom. There you go.
I don't know if you saw my message, but I was not able to hear it.
Oh, okay.
But I mean, talking about how he's admitting that he's worked up and he doesn't think he's capable of doing the show and barely sleeping. I mean, that's typical response, but like saying, I apologize for what we're going to do with it if it offends anyone because we're going to try to do the show as normal as we can. I mean, I don't know. I mean, I don't know how you can start with all of that, like when during his appearance on First Take the other day, and then talk about everything about the Damar Hamlin situation after putting out the kind of tweet that we just showed.
I mean, and then I don't know. If we want to go down this pike even more, Bart Scott on First Take. Now, Bart Scott really took this to a bad place.
Yeah. So to give a little transition to this Bart Scott thing, I was talking with you and Federa and Johnny and Hank last night, a little group chat about what was going on the field. And I said, as much as I'm concerned about Damar Hamlin, the Bills, all that's going on with the NFL, I said, about Damar Hamlin's mother, the fact that Damar Hamlin's mother was in the crowd and had to basically come down from the bleachers to ride in the ambulance with him. I feel so terrible for that poor woman. But then I said, you know who else I feel for? T. Higgins. Imagine this. You were doing a normal football play. You made a catch, you were getting tackled, and you go after the tackler as well. Not an aggressive fight kind of thing, but in the I'm trying to fight against the defender so that way I can have me or my teammate, get more yardage. He did a normal football move. Because of a normal football move, Damar Hamlin went down on the field, unconscious, stopped breathing, basically killing a man with a normal football move. And T. Higgins ended up, I think, leaving the stadium with, I think, his mother arm in arm. And I feel bad for this kid because he was just doing a normal football play, playing in a normal high stakes football NFL game. And his psyche could be damaged. And it's I'm concerned about him. And he should not be blaming himself. He should not be blaming himself for this, which unfortunately leads to the take that Bart Scott made on First Take.
Well, so just to put this into perspective, when you play the game of football, when you go out on that field, and this is going to sound morbid, but you're risking your health or your life every time you play the game of football. I hate to say it, but it's the most aggressive sport we have.
Last night, I think, was the evidence of that. Last night, I think, was the reminder of what could happen, unfortunately, on this field.
Right. And
Monday night.
Right. And then you have morons, assholes like Bart Scott, who decide to basically say, well, you know what? This is T. Higgins' fault because he he laid in with his helmet.
Here's the quote from him. Offensive players can't use the crown of their helmet as a weapon, which is kind of what T. Higgins did. And I'm not trying to put the blame on T. Higgins, but that's something that they tried to take out. Right before the tackle, he lowers his helmet. He kind of throws his body into his chest. He's standing up because he thinks he has to chase T. Higgins at an angle tackle, so he didn't expect T. Higgins to launch his body back into him. So what he did was I'm not trying to put the blame on anybody, but I am putting the blame on somebody.
Bart. First of all, when you're in the media, you can't take both sides of the story. Lesson number one. If you're going to take a side, you need to take a side. Either you believe that the play was illegal or you believe that he didn't do anything wrong and it was just an unfortunate situation. You can't take both sides.
But here's the thing with Bart Scott and this take. How is it, I'm talking, we just mentioned how Shannon Sharp wouldn't want to be associated with Skip Bayless right now because of everybody, including his own brothers in the NFL fraternity, going after Skip Bayless. Bart Scott, you're going to go after one of your brothers in the NFL fraternity?
Yeah, that was bad. That was not a good look.
Especially when I just said, his psyche could be all sort of screwed up after, what just happened on the field.
And the worst part of this whole thing is you did it on First Take with Stephen A.
on ESPN, which we just praised not that long ago for its impeccable coverage about what was going on Monday night.
And I'll get back to that in a second because there's a few other things I want to say about the ESPN coverage. But Bart, what are you doing? What are you doing? I mean, are you? Is this the whole thing? I want to be the standout, like Skip Bayless was being,
because nobody else was talking about it. What T. Higgins did was an illegal hit. Everyone was saying no, it was a normal football move.
Bart, and I'm a big fan of Bart Scott when he left FAN and went to ESPN. But you know what? I can't do it anymore. Sorry, I can't do it. You just totally turned me off, and you probably turned a lot of people off. A lot of people were a fan of you because of your aggressive play on the field. There's no defending what you said. None.
How is he not? And considering that what we just talked about with Joe Buck, Booker, and Troy and Lisa, how is it that we can't suspend him, Bart Scott, or fire him like this?
Because ESPN doesn't react quick like every other company does.
Fair enough, but I think it's a bad look by ESPN after all the praise that they were getting for their coverage.
Oh no, that was a dig at ESPN. That wasn't a let's give them the benefit of the doubt. That was a dig that they don't react as fast as other companies, meaning that Bart Scott said this. Everyone is reacting on social media, but because it was done with Stephen A, no one's going to attack content with Stephen A in it at all. We've seen Stephen A say dumb shit and they don't go after it. ESPN, when you're a big name, when you have prominence at ESPN, you could say the dumbest fucking thing there is, and you will not be fired. You won't be suspended unless you do something so atrocious.
Yeah, but I think Stephen A would have more say and more of a leash than a Bart Scott.
But it was done on First Take. That's my point. It was done on First Take. They're going to take First Take content and they're going to raise it above everybody else.
And to make one of those unfortunate things, that business taking over, as we mentioned right before we started recording, they just set a new lineup on ESPN Radio that Bart Scott is a part of. This is the first week back for radio shows, so throwing a suspension on him already as things are getting back, I would say yes. I would say suspend him, but I don't know if ESPN is going to have the guts to do that.
So his show was national with Alan Hahn. They just moved off locally back to 98.7 affiliation in New York, and he's still going to be on First Take. He's still going to be on Get Up. He's even though he's doing local radio, he's part of the national scene that goes on with the TV shows. But how do you come back from a dumb take like that? How? You don't come back. I mean, and people are going to say, well, with the whole Skip Bayless thing, oh, well, this is Skip Bayless. It's his reputation. Now, I guess I could see in some strange world that makes sense because Skip Bayless has done that before, and that's who he is as a person. Not saying it's right, but that's who he is as a person.
Like I said, that's what Fox pays him for, unfortunately, to be a controversial and a heat magnet and all that.
And the problem is, I think Fox knows what they're up against. Either they're going to get smacked or they're going to get all the views. They don't care. They're paying him like $7-8 million a year. I mean, there was a rumor going around for the longest time. They wanted to do a judge show with Skip Bayless on FS1. I'm not joking. This was a real thing. Like the whole thing that Steve Harvey does on ABC now.
Yeah.
They were going to do that with Skip Bayless.
Nick, if there is something I would say in response to that, it would be if that show actually went on the air, it would be this.
And no, I'm not laughing at this whole situation. That whole thing is just
no.
But to go back to how ESPN did its coverage, Tom said it before. I'm going to say it now. They did as best as they possibly could in a situation which was unprecedented. It was almost a death. Pretty much.
It technically was a death. They had to bring him back to life on the field.
So, and Buck and Aikman, they could have blown up under the pressure there because, again, now they have, 20, 25 years experience each on. So I guess they knew that they were just going to have to wait it out until the situation was figured out. But shame on the NFL if they were going to go back on the field 5 minutes of warm-up and play this game. Shame on the NFL.
Mm-hmm.
Shame on Roger Goodell. Shame on Troy Vincent, who keeps coming out and saying to the media, well, you were never going to play the game. Yeah, you were. You were going to go play this game.
Do you think, I'm just going to throw it out there, do you think maybe they weren't exactly paying attention in the league office and didn't have the full understanding of what was going on?
There's one game that night.
Yeah, but I mean, is anybody really paying attention to the TVs and such?
Right, but it's one game. They have one game to pay attention to that all night. There's no excuses. I mean, there's a man down, and you're going to send everybody back out to play. The players and the NFLPA had to say, not doing that.
Oh,
Sorry.
More of the coaches, more of Taylor and McDermott had to say, yeah, we're not doing this.
Right, but basically the players said it too. We're not going back out there.
I don't blame them.
How can we go back out there? And I don't know who said it, and I give them credit for saying it, but they basically said, hey, that could be me. That could be me as an athlete out there. It happened to him. What about us? That could happen to us too.
I mean, there's no way they could have resumed playing that night. I mean, you saw players hugging one another. You saw players in tears on the field. Stephon Diggs looked like he was on the verge of tears. Stephon Diggs, I think, was one of the players who actually didn't go back to Buffalo, stayed in Cincinnati, actually had to went to the hospital. I forget which ESPN reporter was one of them doing the live.
Coley Harvey was a national reporter.
Who basically had to, a security guard. Now, granted, security guard was doing his job, saying no, nobody can come in to obviously an ER, and basically he had to explain, that's Stephon Diggs, that's his teammate,
right?
And Stephon was allowed in eventually.
I mean, that makes total sense. By the way, you want to be with your team, and quite a few players stayed behind. A lot of the team went back. Some of them stayed behind. Now, I don't know who had the connection with him in Pittsburgh. They were talking about that also when they went to high schools. It might have been Boyd, I think, was the one who they were kind of like friends. They knew each other. But the other thing that I want to talk about too in this whole situation is the toy drive fundraiser.
Yeah. Oh, by the way, he is kind of Pittsburgh born and raised, Damar Hamlin. But I think it's Tyler Boyd. Yeah, Tyler Boyd that he has the Pittsburgh connection with. Yeah, the toy drive. So he has a charity that he started, I want to say a few years ago, about a toy drive charity. There was a GoFundMe for that, and that GoFundMe over the course of the night reached its goal and then some. We are, as of Tuesday, 9:30 Eastern time, how much money has been?
I think it's like close to 5 million.
Is it 5 million? Let me see. Yeah, it hit 5 million right several hours before we started recording. The initial goal of it was $2,500.
Which is crazy. Now, let me point out one thing. Buffalo is historically known, their fans, for charity. We've seen it before. Remember, we saw what happened with Cincinnati, with Andy Dalton.
When Andy Dalton and the Bengals beat the Ravens to get the Bills their first playoff berth since 2000, all the Bills fans donated to Andy Dalton's charity.
And they're showing, excuse me, some of the names. Andy Dalton was actually on this list. He donated $3,000. Chris Jericho donated $5,000. Like it
was two $5,000 donations.
Oh, you're right. Okay,
$10,000 by Y2J.
So yeah, so he had 10,000. Andy Dalton had 3,000. There were quite some big names that put some money up into this charity.
And you're seeing we'll talk about the fantasy and the betting end to close things out, but on the fantasy end, you're seeing people who are winning fantasy championships, or the pot is being split, or the whole league themselves that are donating to the charity. You're seeing such a, come on, the initial goal was $2,500. It hadn't been hit yet, and now it's at $5 million. It is the one sign that there can be some good in this world, and some good can come out of tragedy, is just that there is good in people.
I mean, I'm just looking at some of the other names too. Russell Wilson and his wife donated 10,000. Tom Brady 10,000. I mean, it shows that the NFL community works together as a brotherhood. There are some bad parts to the NFL, and unfortunately, that's the top brass that almost put these guys back on the field to play a game. I know Troy Vincent, as I keep saying, the VP of the NFL, says, we never told the players, we never said we were going to go back on the field. I think that was a walk back, to be honest. I really do. But we knew the player, even if the NFL said you have to play this game, I don't think the players would have stepped back on the field.
No.
I don't think they would have. Out of respect for this guy, this kid, I should say, he's 24 years old, by the way.
Yeah.
We're all forgetting that, by the way.
He's only the second year in the league.
Yeah, he's a young kid. So one, for this to be happening to someone who's 24 years old, that's a little concerning also. Because who knows what his health situation is. Thank God his mother was in the crowd, was able to go in the ambulance and go.
True, but I think that has to be one of the scariest and most concerning sights to be watching your baby playing an NFL game, playing it with his dream, and as you said, legitimately die on that field.
Right. I don't know. This all, excuse me, could have been handled better. Now, a lot of people are saying that the NFL had to wait until they got the official word on Damar Hamlin, that he was in the hospital and whatnot, if he was going to survive. I don't understand why that matters. They should have just postponed the game and walked away from it as soon as he was taken to the hospital. There should have been no excuses. They knew that the players were never going to come back and play. There's no way. There was no focus going on. And by the way, like usually we recap the week and we go over the games. I could give two craps about recapping football. Football.
We're not recapping.
Yeah, football is minuscule right now. So, what were we going to say? I'm sorry.
We're not recapping. We're not doing rapid rundown. We're not doing any of that right now. Obviously, there is the thing to talk about. You know, like I said, as of our recording on Tuesday night, we still don't know if this game is going to be played next week and week 18 and the playoffs and the Super Bowl and all that is going to get pushed back, or if this game is just going to be, or both teams going to be given a tie. Is it going to be basically what we call in MMA terms, shout out MMA Outsiders, a no contest, in which basically this game never happened, essentially. We don't know that. We don't know what's going on.
The problem is we don't know how many teams this affects.
I mean, this affects a few playoff races, a race for the number 1 seed, a division on the line. I'm seeing a sports betting side that Tipico Sportsbook is voiding all bets from the Monday night game.
All the big ones are.
FanDuel, though, if you're in a season-long best ball contest, it's going to count the stats that were played up to the 550-something minute mark in that first quarter, and then that's that. I don't play FanDuel best ball, so I don't know exactly how that works.
There's a problem I did have, though, and especially I saw it on Twitter a lot. All the gamblers on social media who were saying, well, they should have continued the game, blah, 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 blah. Really? You're such a degenerate gambler?
Yep, because some people are such degenerate gamblers that they'll care more about their money than the health and well-being of a human being.
Well, guess what? Screw you. I hope you lose all your money.
Well said.
Because you're telling me that whatever... Now, I know some people who put tens of thousands of dollars on a game. Guess what? Most tickets were DMP'd anyway, so you probably got that money back. So if you thought you were losing money, you're not losing money. Okay? If you're such a degenerate gambler, go outside this country and go bet on soccer. Go take it outside this country. Okay? Because obviously you don't care if a man is dying, and all you care about is that money you put on that damn football game. It's crazy. Gambling has taken over this world.
As far as the fantasy end goes, I did see that Sleeper platform is basically putting an implementation that they can have some feature that if the Bills-Bengals game gets restarted, they can reset the stats. Some leagues are basically, saying this is it. Some leagues are basically the determination is, as we were saying, as of Tuesday night, we know the game didn't get finished on Monday, didn't get finished yesterday, not getting finished today or any time this week. But we still, as of the time we're recording, don't have a clear answer of if this game is going to be made up at all, or if this game is just going to get scrapped.
And that's the problem. The NFL, that's the NFL's problem to figure out whether. I think you can't pick this game up. Either you got to start it over, or don't play it. It's one of those two.
And considering, here's my feeling: obviously we're talking about it's more than a game. This is a man's life on the line, so obviously we can't play it this week, especially considering the emotional state of players at this point. But I also see the NFL considering all the promotion, considering how close we are to the postseason, not wanting to push back Week 18. So I think, as I said before, I think the best solution is you got to call this a no contest. You got to just say this game never happened. I know the Ravens might be up in arms because that's gonna basically a tie or a win, or because by winning, if you go by winning percentage like baseball does, if two teams play different amount of games, the Bengals will clinch the division. But at this point, you just gotta say it is what it is. You could just tell the Ravens, well, you shouldn't have lost the Steelers on Sunday Night Football.
That's a good point. I didn't even think about it that way. But
Well, that's why the NFL, at least in my opinion, scheduled Lions Packers as the Week 18 Sunday night game because their plans got a little foiled. They were going to have to wait on Bills Bengals result, which they couldn't because of the timing that they needed to get the Week 18 schedule out, and obviously everything now up in the air. They had to go to the safety net.
I still think it's a little ridiculous that they put a seventh seed elimination game on prime time when
But
the
at least
possibility of a
I
one
agree.
seed.
I understand, but at least something is on the line. The Packers, it will be a win or go home game, and then
But what happens, and this goes back to something you told me earlier, and I agree with it now, the whole window situation with Seattle, meaning that if Seattle wins in the earlier window, that game is irrelevant.
for the Lions, the Packers have the tiebreaker over the Seahawks.
Wait, so what happens if the Lions do win that game, but they're already out?
Then it goes to the Seahawks.
Oy.
I'll explain it. So Packers win regardless if Seahawks win or not. Packers clinch. Packers lose to the Lions, but the Seahawks win. The Packers lose to the Lions, but the Seahawks win in the early window. Seahawks win. Seahawks lose. Lions beat the Packers. Lions are in.
That's crazy.
And honestly, and I know we get, this is part of the disadvantage not talking about Week 18 because we're talking about the window. We had those concerns, obviously, before the Hamlin situation hit about, okay, which game should get the Sunday night? If the Sunday night game is this, will they Philadelphia Eagles 2020 it, where they basically look to throw the game? And I'll just say, as long as Week 18 is continuing as normal with Lions Packers on Sunday night, even if the Seahawks win to knock out the Lions, I think considering how the season has gone for the Lions, Dan Campbell and Jared Goff, I think they would be damned if they let Aaron Rodgers and the Packers into the postseason.
So you think it's one of those spoiler with the small opportunity to get in the playoffs?
Could you imagine if that's how the NFL season ends? The Lions getting the last laugh on the Packers and knocking Aaron out of the playoffs?
I mean, it would definitely be great headlines for the NFL if the Lions were the one to do it.
And come on, if the Seahawks win, they're gonna have all the camera, regardless of where they're in the locker room or on the bus. They're gonna have all the cameras set up that if the Packers lose, all the Seahawks.
Oh, absolutely, because no one likes Aaron Rodgers right now. Even though I give Aaron Rodgers a lot of credit because he spoke up on the whole thing on the Pat McAfee show with giving Zach Taylor a lot of credit, and Zach Taylor does deserve a lot of credit because he crossed the sidelines a few times.
Was into the locker room with the opposing team and opposing coach. He and McDermott did a hell of a lot for not just Hamlin, but just both teams and their players.
I hate to say this, but Zach Taylor could have done nothing if he really wanted to. Not that I'm saying he would have, but I'm saying he could have just said, hey, I'm the opposition. It's not my problem. But I know he wouldn't do that.
Right. I mean, technically, in a really screwed up way, you could have said the same thing for McDermott of, hey, we got a number 1 seed we got to play for. They didn't do that.
When it's your own team, it's a little different.
I'm just saying, but McDermott and Taylor are two of the best coaches in the NFL, not just in terms of success, but in terms of,
and by the way,
human beings.
And by the way, let me throw one more out at you. This is not McDermott's first issue this year, if you remember. Or was it, from last year, from the season. It's the second issue for the season. Remember the whole preseason snafu that we covered?
Oh, the Matt Araiza.
So McDermott's been through it quite a bit this season.
And I remember McDermott basically having to face the media, and we said, for as tough of a task as the Bills had, the little delay that they had in cutting, that McDermott basically faced the media very well. And I mean here in New York, we talk about culture being set. We see it through the Bills, and then here in New York City, we see the influence on that through Brian Dable and what he's done to the Giants culture this season.
I mean, you almost have to throw McDermott in there for a coach of the year because
Absolutely.
this man has been through it all between I don't know, is it alleged anymore? I don't know, the rape situation with Areza,
Yeah.
and then this. I mean, like someone dying and dealing with a rape situation. Like you deserve a coach of the year representation, even if he doesn't win. He deserves like an honorary coach of the year. The way he's had to handle this team. Now it's interesting because I heard them saying after the game on ESPN or a bunch of other outlets, like the Bills were apparently a very close group in a lot of ways, like very close group. And he was passing out the charity hats in the locker room. They were all wearing them. And like, that's what people don't realize. Like these guys see more of their teammates than they do of their wife and their kids. Like, that's why they're so interconnected with one another when a situation like this happens. It's a tough one. I mean, you don't expect to lead a show with someone who heart stopped and almost died on the field. I can't think of a situation where we've had to deal with anything like that. Forget football. Football is secondary.
It's a shame that this is how we have to start our year. How we have to start our season.
I mean, even Johnny from Game On, who said it, that unfortunately, like, here's your first best of clip of the year for 2023.
Yeah, unfortunately, here's your first big headline. Unfortunately,
I hate to say it, but unfortunately, that's how our business goes when we keep track of when we do logging for our year.
When we do our 2023 best of, unfortunately, well, here's going to be the first clip, the first topic.
I can't believe we even just said best of for 2023. Let's not throw the year away yet. But
are you sure? Are you sure 3 days in this year for stuff going on in my personal life for this, the Dana White thing, which we'll talk about on the premiere of MMA Outsiders.
I mean, maybe if we have a minute or two at the end, maybe we'll get to it. But
I at this rate, I'm already ready to throw the year away. I don't care if it's only been 3 days.
I see, by the way, because sometimes on Twitter, like tweets show up like way after.
You're talking about my tweet that
yes.
I can already tell 2023 is going to be a fantastic year.
A train wreck of a year in the sports world.
A train wreck, yes.
I mean, if that's going to determine the year, I'm afraid.
Well, remember, we were so excited about 2020. And then at the end of January, Kobe died. And then in March, the pandemic hits.
I'll never forget, and I know we're going off on a tangent partially, but I'll never forget when I was still working at my question mark job, which I won't say anymore, in radio. And we were doing the show, and all of a sudden, the world, not just the country, the world shuts down.
The world stopped. Yep.
And it's tough to compare this to that, but it felt like the world stopped for a few days with this situation.
I'm not trying to compare apples and oranges, but I'm saying then you kind of saw that in the ESPN coverage of Hamlin on Monday night. It's like, okay, this tragedy, this situation has happened. Okay, what do we do to cover it? And especially on Monday night when they had to do on the fly, like they were broadcasting the game. It's like, okay, all of a sudden this game doesn't mean anything anymore. All of a sudden now this game is not going to be played. Okay, how do we cover this? And as you mentioned before, covering it from what they know, the now, and the human side, rather than the assumption side and the sports side to it.
What's crazy is Johnny from Game On also was saying that they basically went from sports analyst to news analyst like that, where they literally had to flip a switch and say, all right, how do we cover this? How do we get through this?
Yeah.
Right. And
not a sports news angle, a a human news angle.
And trying to get this, the Bengals reporter, the Bills reporter, the national reporters, just trying to get them in and out. And at one point I heard they put the media, you might know this better because you've been in stadiums and you've been at PR events. Like they put them in a holding room. Like they literally put them in a holding room after the game because they didn't know what to do with the media. Now, again, you might know the answer to that better than me. They probably did that because they didn't want a media storm, right?
Safe to say, yeah. But at this point, just like how they were calling stuff on the fly, all those people, all those media people who are covering the game, well, they're gonna have to call the stuff on the fly now with their own editors and reporters and photographers. Like, okay, what do we do now?
And you got to be super careful with all the reporting. Like you and I were like going back and forth trying to figure out what's appropriate to post. And then we saw, I can't remember the guy's name, the marketing
rep, and it was like, okay, is this really the marketing rep trying to do all these checks?
Apparently it was, because everyone was quote tweeting this man, and apparently he had accurate information somehow.
Mm-hmm.
But like I said, I'm trying to find his charity because I want to shout it out because it's a toy charity.
Oh, you want the name of Damar Hamlin's charity?
Yeah, because I think it's
trying to find I was just on the GoFundMe.
I found it. It's the Chasing M's Foundation Community Toy Drive. And
I think we should put a link to it in the description.
We will. We will. And by the way, it's at $5,645,290.
So by the time you're probably listening to this show, it's probably at $6 million.
6 or 7, depending on when you're listening. It's and they put an update note. I don't know if you saw it when you were looking. It says this fundraiser was initially established to support a toy drive for Damar's community, sponsored by the Chasing M's Foundation. However, it has received renewed support in light of Damar's current battle, and we can't thank all of you enough. Your generosity and compassion mean the world to us. And then it says, if you'd like to show your support and contribute to Damar's community initiatives and his current fight, this is the place to do so. So,
well said. Like I said,
it's crazy
that even in the face of tragedy, there is some good that can come from this world, and there is some good. There is some good in this world. There is some good left in human beings, and we're seeing that through this charity drive.
192,000 donations, by the way. So, I don't know, man. Again, this is unprecedented. This was usually we're pretty good at preparing and planning for a lot of these things when they happen. This one we couldn't. This one
was 24 hours notice, basically.
Not even.
Yeah.
All we know is, and we still don't know his whole situation. Like we had just posted before we recorded the show an update that he was essentially breathing 50%, like you said.
Yeah.
So that's the most accurate information we have at this point. I guess long story short, Skip Bayless and Bart Scott, you were terrible people.
Prayers for Damar Hamlin.
Yes.
Football is secondary. Although hopefully Damar makes a little more of a recovery, or maybe even by the time you're listening to the show, maybe the NFL gives us a more clear and concrete answer. Obviously, they said Bills-Bengals is not going to be resumed this week, but a more concrete answer of if it'll be resumed at all, or potentially everything gets postponed week 18, even, like moving everything back, even to the point where maybe we move the Super Bowl back a week.
Well, here's the thing, and I just thought of this. Since they said they're not picking the game up this week, the only way to get the game in is you would have to push everything back if you're not going to play the game this week. So they have to make the choice. Are they going to play the game and push everything back, or are they not going to play it? So that's really the only choices you have.
I mean, you also have the choice of, if you want to keep the Super Bowl where it is due to marketing and stuff, canceling the Pro Bowl games. Now, I know nobody really cares for the Pro Bowl. Obviously, this is going to be the first year of the skills contest and the flag football game. But then the only concern on that front, Nick, would be you might have the two teams who are in the playoffs competing for Super Bowl complaining, where's our extra week of rest?
True, but we've seen this before where weeks off actually are bad for the team. Sometimes we see this in every sport. Everyone's like, "Oh, I want my week off." Well, have you ever heard of that rustiness comes in and is a factor? I just want to read one more statement. The NFL had put this out before we didn't get to it. The NFL continues to be in regular contact with the medical team caring for Damar Hamlin And also the Bills and Bengals organizations and the NFLPA. After speaking with both teams and the NFLPA leadership, this was the statement leading up to that. The NFL Commissioner Roger Goodell informed the clubs today that the game will not be resumed this week. So,
actually, one more thing I want to add. Fox 19, the Fox station over in Cincinnati, who has been doing a lot of the coverage for this. One of the reporters who actually I think we quote tweeted, Joe Damon.
He's been really good, by the way.
Is noting that the Cincinnati Convention Center tonight, they have like letters to light up the center. It's all lit up. It's all lit up in blue in Buffalo Bills colors tonight.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't expect anything less. A lot of Johnny had also said that where he is in South Carolina, the big roller coaster that they have, apparently it's a big famous one. They lit it up in blue and white and red and colors for the Bills. So
I wish tonight it doesn't seem like it's happening tonight. At least, I mean, as of the night we're recording, I wish tonight, as the night that this episode, that the Empire State Building would get lit up blue and red.
You would think. I mean, we'll see. We'll see what happens. But
all right, I think we've said all we can as of right now about the Damar Hamlin situation.
There'll be more.
There will be more. Our prayers are with Damar. We're hoping for a recovery.
Now we got to get back to the rest of the sports world.
I was going to say, tough to transition in that way, but hour number 2 of the show will be the rest of the stories that we did intend to cover for this week. Obviously, again, new season. I have some new shirts that I got over the holiday that I'll be showing off here. For instance, for you old school gamers out there. Oh wait, I gotta
go down. Yeah,
gotta go down. Little old school Atari looking shirt for right now. As I mentioned, new microphone set up, and that laugh you heard. Obviously, we have a sound effects board. That didn't come from a sound effects board, however. I have my own little board right here.
Oy.
So Nick will be in competition with me as we do.
Well, you don't have everything though.
I don't have everything. I do have certain things, however.
That's true. You're right.
I do have my own specialties, and I do have my own special abilities that will come in handy maybe later.
But since you wanted to say sound effects, hey Skip Bayless and Bart Scott.
That was the punch sound effect? Oh, funny enough, Nick.
God, should have known. All right, where are we going?
All right. Before we continue on with the NFL, let's make mention of, I think this was going to be the lead story before all this happened. We'll talk a little. We never really talk college sports on here, but we will talk about that this Monday night. Georgia TCU will be competing in the national championship game for college football. TCU pulling off an upset over they were the number 3 seed, pulling off a win over number 2 Michigan in one of the bowl games. Double check.
I think it was Fiesta Bowl. I think
Fiesta Bowl, yes, and then Georgia versus Ohio State. I think
Peach Bowl.
Taking advantage of just a horrid first half for Michigan and ending their undefeated season.
And by the way, this actually has some NFL ties connected to it. Believe it or not,
Harbaugh might. There's a report out there that Harbaugh, if he gets an offer from an NFL team, will take it. Will leave Michigan to return to the NFL. I don't know if that's the.
Oh, he will.
Move. I know he will. I don't know if that's the right move.
Well, did you hear that he was talking to the Panthers owner already?
And I heard he was also talking to a certain other team. Well, I have to get it in here somehow.
I'm not surprised. Now, actually, believe it or not, the Broncos are the better of those two situations. I can't believe I'm saying that.
What?
But yes, because Russell Wilson, and then you have who's the younger guy that they got in the trade from Seattle? What was it? A wide receiver or a tight end? Oh, Noah Fant?
No, Noah Fant. Noah Fant got traded to Seattle.
Oh. But they have a great defense. Russell Wilson,
Monty Williams, the running back, who it was supposed to be his second year, ended up tearing his ACL and missing the season. Cortland Sutton, Jerry Jeudy, great wide receiver core. Unfortunately, all of the wide receiver core was banged up. Russell Wilson. The thing is, as we mentioned in the Week 17 picks with Johnny and Hank, not everything was Nathaniel Hackett's fault. He did deserve to be fired, but Russell Wilson, he's not going anywhere considering the dead cap that he's for him over the next several years is going to be, let's say, mega expensive.
I mean, the $250 million contract extension doesn't seem like much, right? No, I'm just kidding.
Not at all.
But it also doesn't help. Everyone was like, well, just cut him. And I'm like, you can't cut him. He's got $108 million dead cap. He's not going anywhere. Nowhere. So, but to get back to this game or this situation, TCU has been playing really well all year. They deserved an opportunity. It looked like Michigan was lost.
Michigan did. They came back in the second half, but at that point, just too little, too late. And
by the way, 1-6 in bowl games now for Harbaugh. He's going back to the NFL.
And then you got Georgia pulling off a big win over Ohio State. They were down. It looked like they were done after 3 quarters. Georgia storming back, taking the lead in the literal last minute of the game.
And then the shank kick.
Ohio State shanks the kick as it hits midnight.
Yeah, you can't make that up.
2, 1. Happy New Year. It's no good.
I was like, you can't make that one up. I mean, you know what? Everyone was expecting, Georgia, Michigan, I'm assuming. So I think Georgia, last time I checked, was a 13-point favorite early for this matchup. I think this is a mismatch. I think Georgia will probably win this game. That means it'd be back-to-back national championships for Georgia. Yeah, that's pretty much it, to be honest.
Had Georgia lost, had what's her face? Ohio State got in, and it was Ohio State TCU. It would have been the first time in a while that an SEC team wasn't representing in the national championship.
Well, yeah, SEC, the biggest conference in football. I mean, you know what? I think everyone is just laughing at the fact that Harbaugh is 1-6 in bowl games with Michigan.
I think several people are just happy that Alabama didn't reach the college playoff.
Oh, fuck Alabama. I could give 2 craps about Nick Saban at this point. Nick Saban, all right, you won your 7 national titles. You made all your money. You're in that stupid Aflac commercial and the Pepsi commercial. We get it. It's enough.
All right, let's talk about some more NFL headlines. I can't believe we really should be talking about NFL headlines, but some of this is also stuff that, happened up during our break. So it's kind of a little, what you missed kind of thing.
Yep.
All right. So the other big headline for the NFL before the Hamlin situation came up, Derek Carr has officially left the Las Vegas Raiders after an announcement came that Jarrett Stidham would be starting Week 17 and Week 18. You had teammates like Devontae Adams and Josh Jacobs that were upset with his benching, and now supposedly the Raiders are going to be expected to explore a potential trade of Derek Carr or release him before, you mentioned it the other day about his extension kicking in.
Right. I think it was February or March. They have to either trade him or basically release him off the roster before $40 million is guaranteed.
Right. But considering the new NFL year starts in mid-March, if the deadline is February, I would expect probably they're going to cut him.
I mean, it's not his fault per se.
Here's what I'm going to say about when you get about fault. Is he a fantastic quarterback? No, he's not top tier. Is he at least in the average, doable? You can, have success with a team with him at QB. Yeah,
he's like your middle of the road quarterback. Mm-hmm. I would say you have 32 quarterbacks. I would even say he's a little more than I would say he's like 13, 14, 15, somewhere around there. Be about right. The Raiders are a dumpster fire. I was going to say, Josh McDaniels, this one's for you. I mean, the Raiders are so bad, it's not even funny. And
Josh McDaniel I'm sorry. He's not a good head coach.
he's got to go back to being the head assistant. Like, he can't do it. He cannot. He had the dumpster fire, ironically, where? In Denver.
Mm-hmm.
And then he ran back to daddy in New England because he knew that the opportunity was still there. Then he said, you know what? I'm going to run off to Oakland and then Vegas. Let's see. That didn't work out very well.
No. And I mean, considering that last year they made the playoffs with what's his name, who replaced Gruden after Gruden got fired?
The assistant,
Rich Bisaccia, I think.
Yeah,
I don't know how to pronounce Bisaccia. You'd think maybe they should have just kept Bisaccia as the head coach.
No, because it's not the sexy name. Come on now. That's how the NFL works.
Yeah, the sexy name.
Ugh.
That's not a good kiss. That's the kiss of death.
Yeah. But and just looking at this part, this is not Derek Carr's fault. I'm sorry. Like, they're scapegoating Derek Carr right now for the dumpster fire that Josh McDaniels created.
And I don't blame Davante Adams for being upset. Remember, he was basically forced over to Las Vegas because with Aaron Rodgers' extension in Green Bay, they didn't have the money to afford both of them.
Well, he wasn't forced. He was a free agent. He chose to sign there.
No, he got traded.
Oh, did he get traded? I thought he was a free agent.
Nope, he got traded. So Davante ends up getting traded to Las Vegas. Now he gets the extension from Vegas, but obviously the reason Las Vegas was so appealing to him was because he and Carr in the mid-2010s were teammates in college. And that lasts all of one season, and now who knows what you're going to get. Now, credit to Jarrett Stidham. He had a hell of a performance in Week 17.
Unprecedented, to be honest.
But I could totally see the Raiders maybe trading up with the Bears to get either your Stroud or your Bryce Young or somebody.
Oh, we could go back to my take.
You think Aaron Rodgers is going to get traded there?
Hey, he'd be back with Davante Adams again.
Here's what I'm going to say on that take, Nick.
RELAX.
Relax. We said this last year about the Bucks too, and then Brady came back after 40 days.
Well, that was stupid to think that Tom Brady wasn't going to come back. Now we're hearing he's going to come back again. I feel bad for the Fox crews. No, I don't. I mean, 10 years, $375 million waiting for when your career is over. Nice problem to have. But to talk about the whole Derek Carr situation, it has to do with the next topic also that we're going to get into. But just Derek Carr, for one, it's not his fault. Okay. The Raiders, hard scapegoated on Derek Carr. Derek Carr had a year last year, if I'm not mistaken, right? Didn't he have a 5,000-yard year?
Let me see his stats.
Maybe not 5,000, but he had quite a year last year.
Oh, come on, ESPN. Why are you giving me his 2022 stats? I not type 2000? I typed 2021. This is why Pro Football Reference is better. 2021. He started all 17 games. Completion rating was 68.4. 4,800 yards.
All right, I was close, but yes, he had quite a year, and then you go from having quite a year to now you're gone.
I think he still tossed 3,500 yards this season,
which is still better than all the choices they have. Now, the interesting part was there were chemistry issues for a while between Carr and Davante Adams, which is kind of strange because, again, they know each other. But Davante was not getting the ball as much as a number one target. That made no sense.
It didn't, but credit where credit is due. They do have, say, Josh Jacobs, and then they do have a couple of depth pieces. Matt Collins being one name that stands out right now.
And by the way, I know Davante Adams is upset, but he's still being paid $150 million?
Something along those lines.
I hate, and I'm trying to be careful just because of the situation we're talking about on the field when it comes to money and saying whether these guys are overpaid. But Devontae Adams is doing just fine. Like, he's going to get paid regardless. Now,
Yeah, but I don't blame him for trading his friend and trading and releasing his friend and the team that you came to. You think you're gonna be contending, and now all of a sudden you're gonna be probably in the basement as you get a developing quarterback.
they should have fired McDaniels and kept Carr, in my opinion.
I think McDaniels. Well, obviously Black Monday is going to be coming up whenever Week 18 happens. Right now, looking at this Monday.
That's why we're not going to approach that topic today. But
Right, but I mean, maybe. I mean, McDaniels maybe on the. If he's not getting fired this season, he's definitely going to be in the hot seat entering 23.
I'll give you a few: McDaniels and Kingsbury.
Kingsbury, yeah, in Arizona is definitely going to be going on Black Monday.
And that quarterback situation's a mess. And talk about, and that's why you're seeing odd quarterback situations when it comes to money, because they just signed Kyler to what, $46 million a year, and now he's not healthy.
I'll give you another name. You guys kind of came after me when this team's general manager got fired, but Mike Vrabel. He's a good head coach, but if the Titans lose on Saturday and
he should be fired. If they lose
on 7-8 straight losses, especially one of them coming to the Texans, who might have the number 1 pick.
If they lose and they lose 8 straight, he's got to be gone. He's got to be gone.
He'll definitely get another team. He'll definitely head coach of another team. It's just you got to cut your losses at that point.
I mean, he'll definitely have a media job if he wants it. Yeah, he's another name on the hot seat. I hate to say this, if people are going to get mad at me and they're going to think I'm being biased, but Robert Saleh's got to be on the hot seat too. He treated the situation so poorly all year. Speaking of transitions.
All right. I did have another story, but you know what? Let's hold that off for the end. Let's focus on just based on transition. Let's go to our New York teams. Let's start with the Jets. Jets were officially eliminated this week off of their Week 17 loss. In Week 18, they will have the opportunity to play spoiler as they take on the Dolphins. But the question right now, not about Salah, not about any of the coulda, woulda, shoulda, but more about Zach Wilson. So, yeah. Nick, I tried to give Zach Wilson the chances. And then I said you were right in that the Jets shouldn't have started Zach Wilson by the midpoint of the season after that disastrous press conference because the Jets were chasing a playoff spot. Week 16 happened. And I had used the term that you cannot have a year of development now, considering the Jets were close to a playoff spot. You need to chase what you could have had the opportunity. However, what that Week 16 game against the Jaguars showed me, and I said this on the Week 17 picks with you, Johnny, and Hank, was that Zach Wilson has not developed. He has not developed in terms of his arm. He has not developed in terms of his mobility. He has not developed also in terms of his maturity as a quarterback. And so, as a result, I don't think he can be the quarterback going forward. And now, over the last week, we have had some split reports. You had Jay Glazer on Fox reporting that the plan was for the Jets to move on from Zach Wilson in this offseason. However, on Sunday before Week 17 kickoff, Ian Rappaport disputing that report and saying that because the Jets are still going to be dealing with the rookie contract, third guaranteed year, the Jets start saying, hey, he's still a young developing kid. We're going to hold on to him. And I know, sounds stupid, but they basically feel like, you know how Sam Darnold got traded for what? A 5th round pick, and we said that was actually good value. They feel like they don't think they're even going to be able to get that for Wilson.
Have you ever heard of you just need to cut your losses?
But the third year's fully guaranteed. They're going to have to pay it one way or another.
No one wants him, though.
What happened?
No one wants him.
So you're going to have to stick. Well, here's the thing. They're going to stick with him, and they're saying all these things about him. That doesn't mean he's going to be the starting quarterback.
But why have him there? Because then, you know what's going to happen, right? Basically, he's going to play good for 2-3 games, and then he's going to. We got to make him the starter again. And blah 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 blah.
Nope. You know why? Because you and I share the same opinion. I think the Jets have to go after Derek Carr.
Yeah, and everyone is saying, and even I heard Boomer Esiason, who, by the way, I think has become very idiotic with some of his takes lately on WFAN, said that Derek Carr is not anywhere near a fit for the Jets whatsoever, and that he can't move his feet, and the Jets need a quarterback that moves their feet. Like, what are you talking about?
Like, I understand what he's trying to say. Here's the problem. The option you have right now is not much better, and I think even worse.
I mean, Zach Wilson's got worse cement feet than Eli Manning did. So you're going to tell me that Derek Carr's not a better option who could at least throw the football?
And unless you're going to be desperate, because Lamar is up for free agency, but he's probably getting the franchise tag. So unless you're going to be desperate and willing to offer picks and defensive pieces to the Ravens, I don't think the Jets are going to be in contention for Lamar. And with Carr, by the way, if he doesn't end up with the Jets, I guarantee you he will be next on the Indianapolis quarterback carousel. Which
would be insane because their reputation, and we see their work with veteran quarterbacks, does not work. Mm-hmm. It doesn't work. Phillip Rivers, Matt Ryan, and then they went to
Nick Foles.
Who?
Nick Foles.
Oh, Nick Foles. Well, Nick Foles got hurt, but I don't think that's all his fault.
They played right, but also at one point this season benched Matt Ryan for Sam Ehlinger, and then Jim Irsay had the nerve to say, "Oh, we're not tanking.
We're not tanking. We're definitely not tanking. We're not doing that." Well, when you hired, oh my God, why am I forgetting his name all of a sudden?
Jeff Saturday.
Jeff Saturday. Oy. When you hired Jeff Saturday, and then all of a sudden you come out and say, "Well, Jeff Saturday is going to be involved in the full-time coaching search."
He might be the full-time coach, yeah.
All I could say about the Colts.
Look at all the failure.
The memes live. The memes live. You know what I could say about the Colts about Jeff Saturday potentially being their full coach?
Yep. I mean, long story short, the Jets need a new quarterback. This team can play. They have Corey Davis and they have Garrett Wilson, who are great, or I should say decent wide receivers. You have decent running backs now. Your defense is good when it's not being pressured to death to stop every possession. I hope they get Derek Carr. And if they don't, I said it in the ETV Minute the other day, that if they don't pick up the phone and trade for Derek Carr, I'm going to call for Robert Saleh's firing every day.
I mean, would you be willing to go into next season with Mike White as your starter?
Yes. I want Mike White and Joe Flacco over Zach Wilson.
Oh, I wasn't even going to go there. I was going to go.
That's how desperate I am to get away from Zach Wilson.
Well, that's not what I was going to go with. I was going to go with, would you be willing if Chris Streveler was your starter?
I'm okay with that. I'll take anybody.
And I think that's the thing I was talking about with Week 16 against the Jaguars. When you're being outperformed by the fourth stringer who you picked up, on a flyer in the offseason, that's bad.
I can't believe I'm going to say this, too. I would take Baker Mayfield over Zach Wilson.
Hey, he'll be a free agent at the end of the year, too, so...
It wouldn't cost you anything.
I mean, if there's if it's like April, I mean, not even April, because free agency in the NFL goes quick, but if they're missing the phone calls, Baker might be their option, their last resort.
At least Baker Mayfield's willing to throw the football. Zach Wilson is not. That's what's so funny about this. Like, they drafted him second overall, and it's like a huge miss. It's like, what's his name? Peyton Manning, and then the other quarter. Well,
Ryan Leaf.
Ryan Leaf, who was drafted number 1, and Manning was 2. That biggest bust of all time at number 1.
You mean at number 2? You mean at number 2? The biggest bust of all time at number 1 is...
The number 1 was a 2.
No, I was going to say that their number one pick bust of all time is from the Raiders, Jamarcus Russell.
Oh yeah, well, he also he was taking a deuce also. So I don't know. It is what it is. But hey, at least you have something to look forward to on the other side of town.
Yeah, Giants actually going to the playoffs for the first time in 6 years. They're only their second time going to the playoffs since winning Super Bowl 46.
Now, their possible opponents are two completely different teams.
You have the 49ers and you have the Vikings.
You better hope you get the Vikings.
Well, the Vikings, they just played in Minnesota on Christmas Eve, and they ended up being a really competitive game until
a 61-yard field goal.
Yeah.
You're not beating the Niners, by the way.
No. I think the Vikings are going to be another tough game. Week 18, by the way, doesn't matter for the Giants. Obviously, we're not going into Week 18 scenarios just yet because of the whole situation.
We don't know.
Right. Yeah. But for the Giants, Week 18 doesn't matter. They're going to be the number 6 seed regardless. The story coming out of New Year's Day when they clinched the playoff spot after an amazing performance by the team is that Daniel Jones and Saquon Barkley, now both of them are eligible for the franchise tag. They're going to be technically free agents because Danny, they didn't pick the fifth year option on, and then Saquon, this is the end of his 5th season. That's so strange to say. I remember us being, on the air with Unspoken Podcast when Saquon just got drafted by the Giants.
I know, that's crazy to think that this podcast has been in one iteration or another for 6 years. But
they're both eligible for free agency and the franchise tag. However, the report coming out right before kickoff on New Year's Day was that they want to lock both of them up and be essentially the future of the Giants. Now, Saquon, we can have a conversation about, but the big conversation about this season obviously has been Danny. Danny needed to play for his life basically this season.
I will say he earned at least next year, is what I'll say.
Here's what, I agree because they made the playoffs, and 2, they're going to have a winning record. And what that has showed me, because they have made improvements from last year, is you can't fault him for everything. Because again, look what he has done. He lost Wan'Dale Robinson this season. He lost Sterling Shepard this season. His number 1 right now is like Isaiah Hodges, and then Darius Slayton.
Well, you also had a wide receiver who decided not to show up either.
Darius Toney, right?
No. The Mr. $72 million man.
Oh, him.
That's what I meant.
Yeah, KG, who actually next year still has guaranteed money, but at that point mid-season they can cut him because then after that they have no guaranteed money in him after next
What
season.
a bust.
I know.
I mean, I saw
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. What's your face? Who was here for a few
Gettleman?
Yeah.
Well, I also think Slayton is Mr. Dropsies lately still also.
But my point is, you can't. If you really want to test Danny, 1, you have to give him a short-term contract, and 2, you have to get him receivers. You have to.
Well, yeah, that's not even a question.
I know your concerns about we're going to be about Saquon about getting injured and such, but if you want to take the ball out of Saquon's hands, you got to give Danny receivers. Receivers have to be your big focal point.
Well, you need a threat. If all you're going to do is hand the ball off to Saquon or throw the ball to Saquon, they're gonna triple team and call it a day.
Right. So here's the thing. I know we've been laughing at Nick Federa and his little take about Odell and such. Obviously, Odell isn't the answer, but the kind of receiver he is, a playmaker, that's what the Giants need. They need somebody who can be a playmaker. They need somebody. We see Danny when he sometimes does sling it down the field for long. We need somebody who has the speed and the agility and the flexibility to make those grabs. They need somebody big.
Well, they fucked that one up at the trade deadline.
Right.
They could have had DJ Moore, but they didn't want to.
They didn't want to give up the pick, which I said if you were going for the way that you were going for it, and now that you have the first round pick, the first rounder is not going to be worth that much. You should have just given up the first round pick for more. I would have been fine with that.
I mean, you made the playoffs, so your pick is automatically guaranteed to be halfway down.
Right.
Halfway down anyway.
But that's my point. Then they should have just given up for more. I do think DJ Chark, as I said in pre-show meetings with you, Johnny Yank, I think DJ Chark should be a target for them. But I think ultimately I know we rip on first rounders, using first rounders for running backs, receivers, and whatnot. Should be focusing on linemen. I think if you're the Giants, as of right now, you may not have a choice, but you got to look to see when your turn comes up, first round, what receivers are available.
Problem is, I don't think it was a good receiver class from what I checked.
I know.
I mean,
or you just got to pray, hey, Antonio Brown, for all the trouble we give him, before his troubles came up, he was a 6th-round pick. Adam Thielen was undrafted. You got to hope you get a diamond in the rough, basically.
right. I mean, they have a weird situation. I told you an out of left field move that they could make if they were willing to make the trade. I still think they should go after a Hopkins, considering that the Cardinals are a dumpster right now.
But again, that depends on the direction that the Cardinals are going to go once Kingsbury is probably out of a job.
Because there are reports that Hopkins might want out.
And if he does take out, again, but are the Giants going to be willing to take any of the money?
I mean, you're referring to the whole cap situation with the Giants. Right. Now, again, you can go back and blame Gettleman for that whole mess.
Yep.
But sometimes you have to take it in to make it a better team. I mean, that's more of a baseball terminology, if anything. But the Giants, now you said they can get out from under...
They have one more season of guaranteed money with Galladay next season. After that, they can say adios like they did Nate Solder.
So then you'll have that cap space. I mean, you need a receiver in the worst way. You're going to have to pay for it probably some way or another, whether it's in picks or whether it's in money. Now, obviously, because they have a cap situation, they're going to have to do it in picks.
Right. Nick, unless in this case, well, actually considering this case, because they made the playoffs, and next year's schedule is going to be tougher because obviously you made the playoffs and the divisions, they played this year the AFC. I think it was the AFC North, and they played the NFC North. Obviously, that's going to switch with the seasons, as it does every year. Next year isn't exactly a guarantee. So the thing is, if you're going to give Danny the contract, and like we said, develop, he's deserved it. It can't be a 1-year deal. You got to give him, fortunately or unfortunately, you're going to have to give him a 2 or 3 year deal.
I think so, and I think I said this to you a few weeks ago, or even more than a few weeks ago. Someone will be willing to offer Daniel Jones a 2 or 3 year deal.
Yeah,
in desperation, not because of his resume,
right? But because, say, it's him, Baker, and all, like it comes down to like him and Baker and Carr. They'll throw money at Daniel Jones if they're not willing to go after anybody else.
I mean, to be really honest, and this is never going to happen, but if the Giants really wanted to save, they'd let Jones go and they would try to get Derek Carr.
But again, after the season that he had, you can't let Denny leave.
I'm not saying they should, but I'm saying if they were strictly looking at it from a money cap standpoint, Derek Carr would, I don't know what the hook would be. I mean, if they released him, then it would be whatever the minimum, I guess, because Derek Carr, of course, is Derek Carr going to command money? Probably, but he's in no position to. So,
but I mean, but no, because he still threw for 3,000 yards this season, 4,000 before. And when your options are, you have Lamar and Derek Carr, and then your other options are, say, Baker Mayfield and Danny.
Well, if the Giants really wanted to get cheap, they could go that route, but I doubt they would do that.
No, and no. And Sam Darnold's going to be a free agent.
Oh, don't even get me
Ryan.
Don't even get me started with that.
That's why I'm like, you gotta at least at this point. Like you know me, Nick. When I came into the season, I was a big Danny doubter, and I still have my reservations. But considering what he's done and what's going to be out there, you got to keep him.
The problem with both New York quarterbacks, technically right now, they're not going to make that deep throw for you. Like, they're not going to say, all right, I'm going to be aggressive on third down and 9. They're not going to take that chance, especially the Jets with Zach Wilson, who basically said, you know what? We're just going to check it down on 3rd and 9 rather than try to get the first down. Now, Daniel Jones is a little different. He will make some throws and try to go deep.
like I said, the question with Daniel is if you give him one or two decent receivers, and including one being a playmaker,
If
will
if they
that
were
happen?
willing to take that shot and get DeAndre Hopkins, that team would be totally different. I'm telling you right now.
I mean, DeAndre's getting up there in age, though.
That's why I'm saying the value might match because he's older. He might be looking for a new situation. That might be a fit. I still think DJ Moore should have been their number one target, but for some reason the Panthers.
Yeah.
But I think the Panthers screwed that one up too. But we're not trading.
Yeah,
We're
you're right,
competing.
you're right. I forgot about that. The Panthers were very, they want DJ Moore to be the
They're
face
number
of their
one.
franchise.
But they're going nowhere right now. Their owner is doing nothing. He's talking to John Harbaugh to be a head coach, which that makes no sense. Can you imagine John Harbaugh in a situation where the quarterback is a mess? I couldn't. All right, where are we?
One more NFL story. So the NFL, Tua, for those who have missed it, went into concussion protocol for a third time, missed week 17, and now the news report is that if week 18 goes on as planned,
He's going to be out.
He will be out, which means it will be either Teddy Bridgewater, depending on what happens with his broken finger, or Skylar Thompson for the Dolphins in a must-win game against the Jets.
From what I heard, I think it's probably going to be Skylar. From what I heard, depending on if they play, obviously.
Nick, I know we're not doing picks right now, but I'm letting you know as we're about to enter what we think is week 18. If week 18 stands and we get Bills, Pats, Jets versus Dolphins with Skylar Thompson and Steelers, Browns, I could very well see the Steelers making the playoffs.
Who are the Steelers playing again?
The Browns.
Oh, yeah. In that situation, yeah, I totally could see them making it.
I know the Steelers don't have the tiebreaker over the Pats or the Dolphins, but I totally see the Pats losing to the Bills. And if Skylar Thompson's starting, I could see the Jet win there.
But that could be a problem with the whole Bills situation going on right now, though.
Right.
Because
That's why I said if things are as normal. If things go on as normal, obviously we don't know. Obviously, we're not in a state of knowing that right now.
I mean, what happens if the Bills just say done?
There is that possibility as well.
Because then the Patriots, I don't know, is that a forfeit in technicality if they just say I'm done? Like
technically, I guess. I mean, but you're also going to have the Bengals who are in the hunt for the number one seed, as are the Bills, as are the Chiefs.
I mean, I don't think the Bills will forfeit out because they know it's too important to.
The bye is on the line in the AFC.
So I don't know. Again, this is a tough one. This is a tough. I mean, the only thing that would have been worse if it happened. Well, no, there is no worse. I guess technically, if it happened in week 18, the playoffs were coming up, then it would have been worse.
Right, but I mean, this is as bad of a situation as it can get from the humanity standpoint and the scheduling standpoint. This isn't like COVID season 2020 where you have a team testing positive in week 4 that you could just move it to Tuesday night football or Wednesday night football. No, you gotta.
You saw how fed up the NFL got at one point where they basically said, I think it was the year after in 2021, where they basically said, listen, that's it. If the player has COVID, they're out. That's it. We move on.
And if you don't have enough players,
tough. Yeah, tough, they basically said. Or if you broke the rules, then tough. You were done.
Right.
Now, I don't know if the NFL would have ever have done that. Technically, they weren't going to give up money.
Now, speaking of breaking rules, in the case of this, obviously the NFL and NFLPA concluded their investigation, said no violation. But if Tua was playing and should have been concussion protocol after the Christmas game where
he self-reported
right. I'm sorry, Nick. I know we talk about how good the Dolphins are, Mike Daniel as a coach and all of that. I'm still not forgiving him for, not him, I'm saying them, the Dolphins, for Tua playing 4 days after being protocol and stumbling and then getting stretchered out on Thursday night.
Well, blame the medical staff.
All of them should be fired at season end.
I mean, it's tough to blame McDaniel for any of this because McDaniel is going based off the medical when he goes in the medical tent and they say, all right, whatever, can you go? But I thought that when you instantly enter, and even if it's not concussion protocol, say you're just going in to be checked for a concussion, I thought you're supposed to be taken off anyway, like off the field when that happens.
I mean, yeah.
So that's what makes no sense. Now, the independent arbiter, or I don't know what you would call it, independent doctor that does the testing,
Well, they got fired after the two.
they got fired because he put him back out on the field. I mean, it's tough again because we have this situation with Damar Hamlin. Essentially, I don't know if he was declared medically dead for a certain couple minutes.
I mean,
but
maybe not, but he wasn't breathing.
he wasn't breathing, right? Now it's interesting because that medical staff got out in no time. They were ready for it when it happened. This situation with Miami, they're getting to him, but they're still clearing him regardless. That's the problem here. What is the Miami medical staff seeing that other medical staffs don't see with their players? That's the question I would ask. Because you're putting out your guy, and by the way, and I said this with Johnny and Hank, I'll say it here. He's got 1 year left on his contract. There's no way in hell you can pay him after next year. You can't. He's been concussed 4 times.
I think I'll go one step further. I think if you're Tua Tagovailoa, I think you need to sit down and have a conversation with your friends and family on if this is okay to keep playing.
And this goes back to, and we heard this on the telecast, well, the post game or whatever you want to call it after the game, that these guys, and you said it and I said it, when you're averaging a career of 3 to 5 years, depending, like, you need to make a living. Now, I don't know what the minimum is in the NFL right now. I think it's like 700 or 750,000.
Minimum salary, rookies with 0 years of service, minimum salary $705,000. The amount increases by $45,000 each year,
which is insane. But all right, so it's 705,000. Hey, you could live a decent life off a minimum contract in the NFL. I don't know. You like you said, the Miami Dolphins staff, medical staff needs to be fired. This is not on McDaniel. This is not on the coaching staff. This is all on the medical.
All right, let's talk about. There's a few basketball headlines. I think let's do them. Obviously, there are some stuff that we weren't able to hit this week. Obviously, Black Monday. We were going to do a little Black Monday preview. That's out the window. We were going to talk about MLB free agency, the moves that we missed, the whole Carlos Correa fiasco, which is a fiasco within itself, about all this, physical issues. Dana White and his little incidents with the little New Year's incident with his wife that involved a lot of alcohol. We'll try to get to those stories on future editions of ETB. The Dana White story is definitely going to be mentioned on the 2023 premiere of MMA Outsiders this coming Tuesday. That'll be talked about. We'll get to all that we can. Let's end on a couple of non-football headlines, though, from the world of basketball. Nick, we talked about my Giants. Let's give you some, some good favorite team vibes. Your Nets have definitely turned it around. Entering December, they were like number 12 in the Eastern Conference. As of right now, they're only a game and a half behind the number 1 seed.
I mean, I'm pleasantly surprised, I guess is the best way I can put it. Kyrie's come out to play. Durant has come out to play. They're both averaging like 30. I think it was like 35 a game. It was like some insane number. And it goes to show you that chemistry matters. I've said this many times with the way this team operates. Now, I hate to say this, but when Kyrie's not being a head case, he actually is one of the better players in the NBA. I hate to say it, but it's true.
Okay, let me bring the second part of the headline in. So Kevin Durant made comments about a week or so ago talking about how that 21-22 nightmare of a season basically helped with chemistry and helped bring the team together.
I've said this many times. Kevin Durant needs to shut his mouth. and just play basketball. I don't care if it was you yelling and screaming and basically forcing Steve Nash out as head coach, or you getting hurt, or you demanding a trade. Which, by the way, if you're going to say the turbulent 2022 brought the Nets together, you have to throw in there that you were forcing your way out of the trade. Okay? So, to be honest, the two of them do better when they're not in the headlines. When they're not in the headlines and they're playing basketball, that's when they do well. When they're in the headlines, what happened for quite a few weeks when we were covering them? They were too much in the headlines, and that's when they played shitty basketball. It's plain and simple. But they're playing great. This is their longest winning streak since when they were the New Jersey Nets. That's how long it's been since they've won that many games in a row. So, as long as they stay out of the headlines, they'll win.
All right, Nick. We haven't used the sound effect today.
Uh-oh.
I'm going to use it for the last two stories here.
Uh-oh.
Because we're going to end on you ranting.
No.
It's LeBron time.
Oh.
All right. Let's start with this one. Let's start with the smaller one. So LeBron has basically suggested that, but let's face it, the way the Lakers season has been going has been, let's say, bad.
Dumpster fire.
Yeah, dumpster fire. Well, I was going to use this.
Well,
so LeBron actually made comments very recently talking about how I don't want to finish my. Here's the full quote. I don't want to finish my career playing at this level from a team aspect. I still want to compete for championships. I know what I can bring to any club with the right pieces.
now,
I mean, I understand what you're talking about. He's still a star of the league. He's still a face of the league. I don't think he's the face of the league anymore.
he's not the number one guy anymore.
No.
I think that goes to Luka, to be honest, right now.
I think it goes to. I would. Here would be some of the faces that I would say of the NBA right now: Luka, Giannis, Steph.
When he's healthy,
I think those are your three. I think those are your three for face of the NBA.
I mean, you could throw Steph and Clay in there too. I mean, but
Clay, okay.
Also Jason Tatum when he's on his game.
Mm-hmm.
Because everyone was saying Jason Tatum should be up there in the MVP discussion. Not right now, but yes, eventual years, I think he will be.
Maybe, okay, if you're going to talk MVP, though, considering his season last season, what he did on Christmas Eve, Jokic, probably.
Oh, Jokic and Luka are in the top 5 discussion, probably the top 3. This one, and you're going to be shocked when I say this, I actually understand what LeBron is saying here.
I do too. However, if you thought by trading for, I mean, you have Anthony Davis there, and you thought all the moves that you made during the offseason and destroying the Lakers cap was going to help you.
All right, but look, do I have to say this is a thing of the past? Look what he did to Miami. Look what he did to Cleveland.
Which is why, once again, I am telling you, and I said this when we were talking about Bronny Jr. last year. When Bronny enters the league and he enters the draft, conveniently, that'll be around the time where the opt-out will be available. He is going to opt out. Bronny's going to get drafted. He will sign with whatever team Bronny gets drafted to. And then he is probably going to pen the letter in the Players Tribune saying, this year with Bronny, the 1 year I will play with him, it will be my last in the NBA.
Now, like I said, I understand this part of it. LeBron James suggests he doesn't want to finish his career with a struggling rebuilding team. Now, here's the problem. What is he needs to clarify. Does he mean that he does? This could be one of two things. Does he not want to finish his career with the Lakers? Or does he want the Lakers to go mortgage there for even more and bring more pieces into the team? It's a very open-ended statement.
How much more can they mortgage?
please. For LeBron, teams were so desperate to move their future 10 years out just to keep
The team presidents will sell their kidneys on the black market.
pretty much. And Miami, I've told you this before. Miami, it took 3, 4, 5 years to recover off all the crap they had to sell off just to keep LeBron happy. I mean, heck, Chris Bosh, the amount of money that was on because of his blood clot issue, he was getting Bobby Bonilla payments. Cleveland was so desperate they brought him back a second time after his year in Miami, and they basically mortgaged everything to win the one championship. So, and the Lakers, forget it. The Russell Westbrook trade, which they basically mortgaged their future for that.
Okay, then I'll throw this question out to you. Going back to what I said about my theory about him playing with Bronny and wherever he goes. Obviously, Bronny's going to be a top draft pick, which means he's going to go to whichever team probably finished bottom 3, if not bottom 5 of the previous year. Is LeBron going to be willing to go to a team that finishes bottom 3, bottom 5, even if it's a team like Salt Lake City or a team like who's struggling right now, who's towards the bottom?
I mean, I can look. Eventually, I think Minnesota's heading that direction too.
Which is, as we said in the best of, which is kind of sad considering we had high hopes for Minnesota when they traded for Gobert.
Detroit, Charlotte, Orlando.
Okay, Charlotte was the good example because quite ironic considering Jordan owns that team. But
he would never go there. At least I don't think so.
So if Bronny got drafted by Charlotte,
which is very possible, by the way.
Well, so here's the thing: if you're LeBron and considering the influence he has, would LeBron go off and play for another team and be willing to play against his son in games, or do you think he would try to force Charlotte to trade Bronny?
First of all, that not blaming you, but that would be a dumb thing if someone was listening to an all-star from another team trade my son to the team I want to go to.
I was gonna say, well, he wouldn't be on another team. He would be technically a free agent.
That would still be dumb. I would basically, if I had his son, I'd say, here's the deal: either you play with us or get lost to go play somewhere else. There's no reason. I mean, Detroit, which is last in the Eastern Conference right now, they could end up with his son. They really could.
And could you see LeBron putting on a Detroit uniform?
He probably wouldn't want to, but if he wants to play with his son so bad, he might. Can you imagine the Pistons would get more attention than I've ever seen in my life?
I can't believe I'm saying it. I can't believe I'm saying this, but Nick, you're kind of right. And not in that it's going to happen, but in terms of what LeBron is praying for. He's probably praying Bronny gets drafted by the Knicks.
I said that, but here's the thing. The Knicks are the 8th seed right now.
Right.
So they're not going to be anywhere near the top of the draft.
Well, let's knock on wood and make sure.
Well, right now, I mean, but if the Knicks were somehow to have a massive drop-off like they do in the second half of the seasons.
Correct. Okay, but so let me change it. He's probably praying then Bronny gets drafted by a major market team. A Lakers, a Knicks, a Nets, a Sixers, a Bulls.
Well, I'll tell you right now, the Sixers would definitely be out because they're gonna finish at the top of a conference.
Okay, I'm trying to say a point. He's hoping a major market gets the number 1 pick that year, so that way he can.
Here's one I'll tell you. So Houston, which is last, I think LeBron would go there. Would go to Houston. San Antonio, which is second to last, he would go to San Antonio.
Oh my God! Imagine LeBron playing under Popovich.
Well, who knows if he'll still be there?
Right.
But,
true.
The Lakers, he's not going to OKC. Minnesota is in 11th. The Jazz are in 10th, and they have Golden State 9. That would be insane if the Warriors fell completely.
Steph Curry, Klay Thompson, LeBron James, Bronny Jr., Draymond Green.
That would just be like unfair.
That's unfair. Yeah, that's nuts.
I don't think the Warriors are going to fall completely out. I think they're going to make the playoffs at some point. But imagine if the Warriors fell out and fell into draft contention for Bronny Jr. That would be insane.
And it would be a great chance for Braun to, end his season on top, like a Peyton Manning or an Elway or a Strahan.
Oh, yeah, like Peyton Manning did with the Broncos.
Yeah. All right.
I'm just saying that would be insane.
All right, let's take some shots at LeBron now.
Oh, no.
So, LeBron James. So, Cleveland Browns actually managed to get a win in Week 17, defeating the Washington Commanders to eliminate the Commanders from the postseason. By the way, good job, Ron Rivera. You had no idea your team could have been eliminated this week.
That was really funny, by the way. Wait, we're eliminated?
He's probably another one up for Black Monday.
I don't think he's going anywhere. I
don't think so either, but
with the ownership being up in the air, I don't think they're going anywhere.
But LeBron sent out on Sunday a tweet that got some interesting looks. Now, LeBron is a Cleveland Browns fan. You could say not on the surface, not surprising considering his Cleveland roots.
Wait a minute. I'm confused here now. Because you told me he was a fan of another team until he renounced his fandom.
Yes. So on Sunday, he posted a tweet that says, after the win, he says, "Yes, sir, D. Watson. Another one. That boy getting his rhythm back." Now, Deshaun Watson, for once, actually did play very well.
What the f***?
You were also playing the Washington Commanders.
All I can say is...
Yeah. So the whole thing here is that LeBron, as you kind of hinted at, was a Cowboys fan, but then renounced his fandom because of the whole scandals that were going on revolving around Jerry Jones.
So he's a hypocrite.
Okay, so we answered the question right already.
Yeah. I mean, what are you doing, LeBron? I give you all the benefit of the doubt because you said you wanted to play on a playoff team, and I totally understood it because you're an older player. I gave you the benefit of the doubt. This one I can't give you the benefit of the doubt on. You're going to defend a sexual predator, allegedly? Really?
And this is why sometimes I can't take some of his, actions seriously.
You renounced your fandom for the Cowboys because Jerry Jones went to one of those sit-in things when he was a younger adult. Yeah. But you're willing to support someone who possibly is a sexual predator. That makes total sense. Way to go, LeBron.
Because fandoms go out morals and ethics go out the window when it comes to fandoms. Good showing.
I mean, I know he's not here, but
congratulations, dickweeds.
I have to because that's a congratulations, dickweeds moment right there. Good job, LeBron. Good job.
All right. That is going to do it for this season premiere of Empty the Bench.
Whew.
Obviously, we talked for 2 hours. That's more than enough.
Let's just say one thing. So the way this show is going to go is you're going to get us every week doing the show, but there will be a rotating third chair throughout the year.
Beginning in February.
Right. Beginning of February. Right. And you'll see quite a few people. We might bring in some people you've never seen before. Mm-hmm. So
I'm more than certain that Johnny will make an appearance in the third chair. Hank will make an appearance in the third chair. There will be a couple of people, as you said, may not have seen before. And then while we're doing this 2-chair experiment throughout January, towards the end of the month, maybe there might be something in the works there, a little something special coming up.
Wait, a twist?
There might be a little twist towards the end of the month.
I guess you'll have to wait and find out.
Mm-hmm.
Damn those teases you hear on those podcasts and radio shows.
As we mentioned earlier, no rapid rundown. I wish we could have gotten one more rapid rundown this week for the sake of the end of the season, but with Week 18 being up in the air, obviously we are not going to do that now. If we do Week 18 picks, most likely it will be one more crossover with Johnny and Hank for Football Friday. And then as long as Week 18 stands for this weekend, next week on our own shows, us two on Empty the Bench and those two on Game On, we'll do our own preview and predictions for each of the playoff matchups.
Also, just so people understand, because you mentioned it briefly, Nick being away for a while, Nick is not gone. Nick is, because, and I'll say it now because it's all finished for the most part, and I have a little behind the curtain here. I have a meeting with the website. Yes, it's the first time I'm mentioning this on the show. Yes, we have a website that's coming. I have a meeting with them at the tomorrow. So, yes, the website will be official this week.
Okay, so we will give more information on our new website, which Nick Federa, while he's away, is going to be leading.
The head editor of the blog section we have on there. So we have a lot of interested people who want to write. Hey, if you're interested in writing, just tag us on social medias or whatever, or email. We can give that out away from the show. But yes, we will have a website. We're not going to give that website name out yet. We will give that website out in a separate video. Maybe we'll do a mini stream about the website when it's official. So a lot in the pipeline.
For sure. All right. Make sure to like and subscribe. Make sure to hit the notification bell, especially now as all the shows are starting to get into their premieres for 2023. Rudy Serial was on Monday. MMA Outsiders was off this week, considering it was a low week for MMA, at least up until the point where Dana and his wife got into the little New Year's incident.
Are you back next week?
We are back next week. Yes, we will be back next week. Empty the Bench is now back. Game On is back.
Beyond will be back Saturday.
Okay. 5 more minutes, Mom. Had a week off last week for New Year's.
They'll be back Saturday. So
new season.
Everything is back.
Yeah, new year, new groove. So make sure to follow the network at ETV Network on social media. You see our social media scrolling across the bottom. Follow us at ETV Sports. And with that, for the first time in 2023, we're going to say goodbye. So, for Nick Morgasen, I'm Tom Albano. We'll see you next week. Take care, everybody.
What a show. We'll see you next week for what episode? 167. See you next week. Good night, everybody.